Warning, this video contains explicit subject matter on the topic of sexual misconduct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Alright, this crap is probably the most problematic entity I've ever covered in my entire career, and it's also just all utterly ridiculous, but I recently found out that this thing exists, so I just gotta dump everything I've heard about it all over your neck and chest, and we can deal with the consequences later. Offenderman is a parody spin-off of Slenderman, described by the fandom as a user of women, a rapist, to use the monetizable pronunciation, a possible pedo, necro, and zoo. So the obvious question, what the actual f***? He lives in more highly populated areas, most often urban regions, as opposed to Slenderman, who's more of a nice ranch out in the woods type of guy. Offenderman needs the hustle and bustle of the city. Also unlike Slenderman, Offenderman typically targets adults rather than children. Thank f***ing God. Offenderman wears a black trench coat and tie, but no shirt for some reason. Like, what is the tie even for, though? He's also pretty jacked, but he unfortunately wears a black fedora, which, now it makes sense why he has to, trick people. Offenderman truly lives up to his name. He has an extremely perverted and provocative nature. He is primarily known for his charisma and being overtly sexual. He tends to use his charms to lure in victims. However, only to indecently assault them. Okay, here's my thing. It's okay to be into some weird stuff, but you still have to respect consent and personal autonomy. As long as no always means no, drink as much piss as you want. Who cares? An encounter with Offenderman plays out like this. The victim will be alone, and will find a tall man hidden in the shadows, far enough away that they initially won't be able to discern any of his features. The man will approach and offer them a rose. As he does this, his details will not get any more clear. For some reason, this won't startle the individual. If the rose is taken, regardless of if the individual understood its meaning, they will wake up the next morning with no memory in an embarrassing place. Like face down in the gutter, rock bottom style. Is that a fucking plane? Bro, I'm really mad about the planes flying over my house, but I can't say shit that's gonna get me on the no-fly list. During the time that they couldn't remember, exactly what you think happens is written to happen. Jesus Christ, dude, this one's just a paranormal roofie monster. If they don't accept the rose, in typical toxic fashion, he will stalk and harass them for a few weeks, doing anything from downloading a bunch of nightmarish and embarrassing porn on their computer, stacking furniture into towers in their house, leaving dead animals around the house like some sort of sexual misconduct monster cat, and appearing for split seconds in the corner of their vision. Usually when they're exposed. Eventually, he'll trick the victim into following a trail of rose petals to wherever he is, and do the problematic frat boy tango. That's right, the Slenderman political dynasty has some serious skeletons in its closet. Not all victims return though, and no bodies have ever been found. It's not clear what he does with them, but unfortunately, I think it's also painfully obvious what he does with them. Offenderman comes with his own STD. Sitting on his tendril will get you what's known as the slender sickness. The effects are different from person to person, and can range anywhere from an awful hangover to a stomach bug to a rash to nosebleeds and coughing up blood. The only real similarities as far as side effects go are having erotic nightmares involving someone resembling him. Look, I know how horrible this all is. To be honest, I think the concept is kind of in poor taste too, but I didn't write this. I'm just documenting it. What do you want from me? You needed to know that he's out there. I mean, eventually you would, I guess. I'm pretty sure he has to go door to door now, since he offered to trade that guy a maple syrup foot job at a Denny's for half his Grand Slam.
Hello. Smile non-threateningly to homeowner. Oh, I wasn't supposed to read that part. As per a court order from the Parts Unknown District, I am legally mandated to inform you that I am a convicted sexual offender.
You already got to me.
Oh, you didn't tell anyone, right?
No, of course not.
Aren't you the smash or pass guy?
Hey, f you, buddy.
Deal.
Humanity has come into contact with a newly discovered form of sentient life, the Yabblins. These creatures are aliens. These goobers hop from one planet with sentient life to another, selling various types of intoxicants to the population. These substances, being alien in nature to the native population of the host planet, are entirely novel to them. It's often reported as the most intense high they've ever experienced. The Yabblins are a species of short, stout humanoid creatures that look similar to what humans have depicted in the movie Gremlins 2, which is one of the greatest movies of all time. And the original Gremlins, which is also one of the movies of all time. The vast majority of Yablans that other sentient life interact with are drones, serving the upper echelon of the Yablan hive with the sale of their products. As the dealer Yablans are typically scrawnier and have sharper teeth and claws than the upper-class Yablans, which are quite fat and kinda look like those soggy hairless cats. One day I'm gonna get me one of them living testicle cats. These creatures are eusocial, and the organization of their Lovecraftian cartel is actually more similar to an incredibly complex anthill rather than a society of individuals with individual goals. If it gets you high, the Yablans sell it, but what they're really famous for is the drug that their namesake comes from, Yabble. Like floppy baby syndrome, this cartoonishly ridiculous-sounding thing is actually quite severe. Yabble is an incredibly addictive stimulant with deliriant properties, usually snorted but injected amongst the most hardcore of users. Yablans will aggressively push this drug to any customer, regardless of what they originally intended to purchase. If the customer continually returns to a Yablan to purchase some sort of extraterrestrial intoxicant and refuses the Yabble every time, it's quite common for Yablans to lace their other drugs using Yabble in order to attempt to get the user addicted. I don't want to sound specious here, but you really don't want to do business with this cartel. I know it's not all of them, but you'll be thanking me when you're not sucking celestial gremlin dick for some space meth. Symptoms of Yabble intoxication vary widely depending on the dosage. You know what they say, take 1 Benadryl, get sleepy and less itchy. Take 15 and see the fucking Hatman. These symptoms can include euphoria, dysphoria, elevated heart rate, paranoia, hyperfocus, low appetite, sexual arousal, hallucinations, mania, blurred vision, delirium, and psychosis. Deliriants are unique compared to other hallucinogens because they create true hallucinations, which are hallucinations indistinguishable from actual reality to the user. People will often use Yabble to stay up for days, and in this heavy abuse, the drug goes from lightly to heavily hallucinogenic. These hallucinations become darker as the addict goes without sleeping for longer, and in combination with the poor decision-making that lack of sleep will also cause, a Yabble binge user can easily endanger themselves or others. From someone who boofs embalming fluid, this shit is one-and-done addiction. Don't touch it. Where there are Yablans, there is Yabble. And where there is Yabble, there is an incredibly high rate of drug-induced assault. Yabble-induced mania often takes the form of the user believing they are under threat by their hallucinations. Oftentimes, they hallucinate others they see as monstrous abominations. In all cases, this results in a fight-or-flight response. The cartel attempts to addict as much of the population of the native species as possible. In cases where the Yabble addiction rate is over 75% of the population, the Yablans will start to use their stranglehold over the drug supply as a bargaining chip to gain more and more control over the native species planet. Slowly but surely, they'll gain majority control of the planet's resources and addict almost the entire population of the sentient species to the drug. This one time I was hanging out with another species, and I saw all this happen, but I was more concerned with putting those just add water, watch it grow animals into jars of pee. I think I used my time well. When they finally get complete control over the sentient species and the resources of the planet, they begin importing the raw materials for the Yabble production, and use the native species as a workforce in exchange for the fruits of their labor. After extended periods of Yabble use, the individual can often lose their higher cognition. The Yablans take advantage of this and breed the sentient species to be made to work until death solely for redoses of Yabble. After the majority of the planet is in this condition, the Yablans hyperpopulate, which basically just consists of goblin orgies, until their species is almost double the original population. Half the population leaves, promptly flipping up their middle fingers and flying the fuck off into space to screw over another species.
The Hatman. What is the Hatman? Is this the Hatman? What about this? How about these? Are you aware that the majority of humanity's cultures have observed this shadow monster independently from one another seemingly since the beginning of civilized society, maybe even longer? The Hatman is most often described as a shadowy figure standing 6 to 10 feet tall. It has seemingly no discernible characteristics other than a soupy black void-like appearance, and in some depictions, 2 pinprick glowing crimson eyes. His namesake comes from his trademark large-brimmed hat, the edges of which extend past his shoulders. As with any unknowable entity, the drip is on point. This being often appears in the corner of rooms or the foot of one's bed, doing God knows what. It does not always come alone, sometimes accompanied by other shadow people. Whenever it does work with associates, there's always been a sense that the Hatman is in charge. The entity has been reported independently in numerous different cultures and societies, and some think that the Hatman is ingrained deep within a universal and archaic part of human consciousness. The Hatman's presence is often associated with intense fear and paranoia. Among other scenarios, this figure commonly appears to those who are under the spell of sleep paralysis. The victim awakes, unable to move. They open their eyes to see their bedroom unaltered. save for an otherworldly, alien figure looming over them from the darkest corner in the edge of their vision. 2 piercing blood-red pupils burning a hole into their retinas. This is, of course, only one way to see the Hatman. Another more notable way to summon the Hatman is one that has recently been repopularized in meme culture. That is, excessive drug consumption. The Hatman's drug of choice is Benadryl, and more broadly, deliriants in general. Some people associate the Hatman with overconsumption of any drug, but this is more in a meme context. The deliriant's namesake comes from the word delirium, which is defined as a serious change in mental abilities. It results in confused thinking and a lack of awareness of someone's surroundings. This is an incredibly apt description for what deliriants tend to do. Deliriants are unique amongst other hallucinogens because they can cause true hallucinations, which are hallucinations indistinguishable from reality. Let me give you an example. If you asked a sober person the directions to the library, they would probably give you the directions to the library. If you ask somebody on deliriants the directions to the library, there's a decent chance they'll just rip off all their clothes and scream about the shadow people. Other than the Hatman, people taking deliriants often report hallucinating insects, smoking fake cigarettes, or seeing other shadow people. These drugs are considered to be the most terrifying and least pleasant hallucinogenic drugs on the market. Why would anyone willingly subject themselves to this, you might ask? Most often, deliriants are only consumed because some rando bought a pack of off-brand pink pills from CVS and didn't think through their actions clearly, or anything clearly for the next 48 hours for that matter. From Wikipedia, the effects of deliriants are as follows. The hallucinogenic experience and delirium produced is characterized by stupor, agitation, confusion, confabulation, I don't know what the fuck that means, emotional bluntness, dysphoria, memory deficits, incoherency of thoughts, hypo or hyperactivity, lucid intervals, akathisia, I don't know what the fuck that means either, realistic visual hallucinations or illusions, and regressions to phantom behaviors such as disrobing, plucking, or interacting with imaginary objects or scenes. The effects of these kinds of anticholinergic compounds have also been likened to delirious fevers, sleepwalking, and fugue states, or psychotic episodes. In addition to this, deliriants can cause memory loss, meaning they can make you forget large portions of the trip. This can result in the user suddenly regaining consciousness in unknown places, or forgetting that they've taken a drug in the first place. Some think that the Hatman's appearance comes from a primal fear of the unknown, an ingrained evolutionary scar left from strange outsiders with ominous intentions. A ghostly figure with no traits save for an uncanny valley human shape embedded in the minds of every single member of humanity for an undetermined reason. Or something goofy like that. The theory goes that when the mind is under great stress, say for example, sleep paralysis or a Benadryl binge, the brain would hallucinate this being to rationalize the experience in the mind of the experiencer. Another theory about the Hatman is that he's some sort of supernatural entity. This would make sense for the sleep paralysis theory, as well as the drug-induced theory. I don't know why it would, but just take my word for it, I guess. So basically, I guess he's like a Benadryl demon. The Benadryl demon? You know, in high school, I knew a guy who had the nickname Benadryl Demon. He's not doing too well. Others still think that the shape of the Hatman may be a map of the body imprinted in the brain for the purpose of locomotion and proprioception, the perception of your body in space. Because your brain is in such an altered consciousness, it's theorized that it could project this map into reality during the state of dissociative delirium. The large hat may be a distortion due to the exceptional amount of allocation of space in the human brain related to advanced reasoning and intelligence. That last part is just me talking out of my ass, but I'm pretty sure that the first part was someone else talking out of theirs, so whatever. Now some may think, I don't believe in anything unless a famous person tells me to. To those idiots, I present to you dedicated Hatman awareness advocate, Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron fucking Rodgers. That's right, ever since he went to Peru and did ayahuasca, he has been witnessing the Hatman routinely. According to Rodgers, sometimes he appears in the distance, usually veiled by darkness holding the corpse of a dead rabbit, and sometimes a blade. Rodgers claims he is afraid to be in the locker room alone, as the lights flicker and go on and off one by one. It's behind him, not even breathing hard. He can hear the feet hitting the ground in a constant rhythm. He runs to his car, opens the door, and slams it behind him, and locks the car door as fast as he can. Well, that's spooky. I don't know where I was going with this, and now I suddenly fear that I'm just mocking a nice man with a case of severe HPPD. And I'm canceled. And everyone already forgot. All right, back to the video. Look, we can have our noses in these books all day, but what has reading ever taught anyone? Nothing, because no one can read. They're all just lying to sound smarter than me. Instead of just wasting more time, money, and humans trying to speak directly with this Hatman, we have contacted world-renowned psychedelic researcher and Hatman expert, Josie Kins. So, Josie, have you ever seen the Hatman?
Kind of. So the first time I used diphenhydramine, a delirium compound, at the age of, I suppose it was 17 to 18. I had never heard of the Hatman, but I did see a shadowy figure wearing a bowling hat. And looking back on it, I wonder if that was British Hatman, because I was living in the UK at the time.
What do you believe the Hatman is? Real? Hallucination? A demon? Some sort of Lovecraftian dream hat product placement?
I think there are two components to people experiencing this figure. One is sort of innate and occurs due to basic neurology, I suppose, and the other is culture. The more you hear about the Hatman, the more he's likely to appear. So he's sort of a mimetic cryptid of sorts. I think Hatman is essentially a shadow person, which is a common form of hallucination. I tend to take the materialist stance when it comes to hallucinatory experiences in general. For example, I don't believe that DMT entities are real or from a higher dimension or anything like that. And I think the same applies to the Hatman. Shadow people are a very common hallucination that people have during states of sleep deprivation, delirium psychosis, stimulant psychosis, things like that. And they seem to just be the most basic form of a hallucinatory entity. So you see a person, a humanoid figure, but they lack detail. They're just a dark, shadowy figure. And I've been thinking about this a lot, but if you're going to play off of a silhouette of a human being, one very basic way to make it look more distinct is to add a hat to the silhouette, which I think is why it happens so frequently, because it's just a very simple thing that the brain can do to create a more notable figure.
Have you ever looked at that tree in your backyard and thought, damn, I really wish that thing could get me pregnant right now? No? Well, that's too bad because it's what we're talking about today. SCP-401 resembles an ordinary tree in form and function, but with human physiology substituted for plant biology. Basically, that means instead of using photosynthesis, it eats. Instead of using plant respiration, it breathes with its lungs. And instead of plant-based vasculature made out of xylem and phloem, it's got flesh and blood veins. TLDR, if you cut open this tree, the inside would look kinda like you. You might be asking yourself, if this thing eats, does this thing poop? Or does it do whatever the trees normally do? I can confirm that this tree does have a butthole on the side of its trunk, which it does use to poop. Funnily enough, there aren't any roots directly under this spot either. What I'm wondering is, since this tree can't walk, when these things occur in nature, do they just exist until they slowly drown in their own shit? That doesn't make any sense. Moving on from this, you may be curious as to the physiology of this man tree. The trunk of this tree is supported by multiple vertebral columns, held together by a series of tendons and muscles. On the outside, rough, thick bone tissue takes the place of what would be bark. As it goes higher, each of these columns will split, until there is only one vertebral column supporting the rest of the tree. At the base of this weird tree trunk torso are multiple human hearts, which pump blood and nutrients throughout the roots and branches. The roots of the tree are similar in structure to human necks, and upon further investigation, appear to contain esophagi protected by a layer of cartilage reminiscent of the trachea. At the end of each root is a fully formed upper and lower jaw, complete with muscles, lips, and a prehensile tongue. If you would f*** the tree feet mouth, comment below! While I'm sure you have your own disgusting ideas about what the prehensile tongue could be used for, observations have shown that the tree uses it to dig around in the dirt and catch critters like burrowing animals and other life forms like plants and fungi to swallow up, condemning them all to a horrible fate. All of these roots lead to one stomach. This, along with a fully functional, incredibly long intestinal tract, work to absorb the nutrients and create the aforementioned poop that it does in fact make. The branches are similar to human arms. They extrude themselves from the bony trunk, but have no bone bark themselves. Many branches will split at the elbows to allow more than one forearm. The palms of the hands all face upwards, and the tip of each finger has a human eye growing from it. The eyes are hazel in color.
I'm a sucker for big brown soulful eyes.
Dissection of the eyes show that they are all myopic. But through multiple annoying flashes from my iPhone flashlight in the eye, I can see that they do react to light stimuli as a normal eye would. The theory behind the condition of the eye is that it acts as a protective feature, preventing excessive damage to the retina from direct sunlight. Although that doesn't really make any f***ing sense to me, because the sun can still give you a sunburn even if you can't see it. Though the chemical process is yet unknown, the retinas in the eyes carry a form of photosynthesis which transforms carbon dioxide and water into oxygen and glucose. This is further proven by a chemical analysis of the lungs, which shows that there is a higher concentration of oxygen when SCP-401 exhales than when it inhales. Here's the part of this critter that inspired the thumbnail, title, and the reason I'll be cancelled on Twitter. In spring, SCP-401 will go into bloom. Although it is a genetic male, it will grow female sexual organs. The vaginal openings are located on the palms of the hands, with canals extending 18 centimeters along each wrist to a bulge which contains a fully formed uterus and ovaries. 5 days after the formation of the organs, all the weird hand branches start their periods, and then dicks grow in the place of the vaginas within the span of 10 days. Once the dicks are fully formed, they'll shed and fall to the ground, and then the tree will eat its own dicks through its roots.
Nature is just so beautiful sometimes. I mean, not right now. This makes me want to cause an XK class extinction event, but I don't know, stick your tongue in an anthill or something.
During this phase, SCP-401 will attack human females for the purpose of reproduction. Well, I guess someone decided that the world existed long enough without the fucking sexual assault tree. Whoever wrote this entry is both incredibly creative and should probably also be investigated. I can only imagine the feedback when the author asked for notes on their new writing project.
Hey, so I love the idea of a tree made with human biology. So creative. Just one note.
It wouldn't happen to be about the molesty part.
Yeah, it's the molesty parts.
You might be wondering, how does someone contain a rapist tree? For some reason, a painstakingly detailed mural of the landscape of France is painted on the walls of the courtyard. But the hourly failed art student turned agent who is paid to paint all the walls has insisted that this is vital. Once daily, personnel are to feed at least 10 of the roots with a nutrient-rich slurry. They also gotta pick up its poops. Female personnel are not to enter the courtyard at any time between March 15th and April 1st, under any circumstances, because of the horrible fucking things that would definitely happen. This problematic tree was first found near the French city of Redacted. I hear Redacted is just beautiful this time of year. Evidently, the ground was bleeding for some reason, and then people called the cops because apparently it's illegal for the ground to bleed. Agents intercepted the call and went to the scene to see a human mouth embedded in the soil, licking away the remaining blood with a long prehensile tongue. It took them a week to dig out the area around the hand and realized that the mouth was part of the root structure. This root structure belonged to what at first appeared to be a 40-meter tall dead eucalyptus tree with branches shaped like multi-jointed human arms.
I like that they just saw a tree made of arms next to it and went, oh, that's completely normal. Let's not check on that for an entire week.
The white color of the trunk, originally suggesting that the tree was dead, was found to be because the bark was made of human bone tissue. It was given SCP status and excavated from the area to be transported to Site Redacted.
I always love when a rescue finds a forever home.
Now you're probably thinking, if I had a molester tree, I would mess with it in some weird experiments. First off, you're going to jail, but before that, this next section is for you. Experiment Log 401-1. The fact that SCP is genetically human, combined with the Dan Schneider-style behavior it displays, suggests that it may be compatible with human beings. A number of ethically questionable and disgusting experiments have been proposed to test this. Date? Redacted. If you're just gonna redact everything, why are you writing it down in the first place? Subject: female D-class, personnel D2055. Procedure: D2055 was artificially inseminated with material produced by SCP-401 during its male phase using a turkey baster. The product of this was allowed to gestate. 9 months after conception, D2055 gave birth to a normal human male infant. Though healthy and lacking in any unusual tree-like attributes, the child has been found to suffer from myopia compared to what afflicts the eyes of SCP-401. He therefore had to wear glasses, similar to what researchers would describe as a fucking nerd. The child has since been adopted by Agent Redacted, who has agreed to bring his new son to a Foundation-approved doctor for monthly physical examinations. Experiment Log 401-2. Male D-Class Personnel D2067. Procedure: after hours of persuading Dr. Bright that, quote, showing the Foundation why he calls it the bone tree would not in fact be funny, D2067 was ordered to donate genetic material which was used to artificially inseminate SCP-401 at the beginning of its female phase. Details: 12 hours after insemination, the uterine bulge in the wrist increased in size by 300%. While the other branches continued to develop normally for the next 2 weeks, the pregnant arm retained its uterine bulge and vaginal canal. 24 hours prior to the maturation of male organs, the uterine bulge began contracting until a mass of tissue was extracted from the palm. The tree then does what all new parents do, and threw their newborn as hard and as far as they possibly fucking could, like an egg against a brick wall. After hours of searching, Foundation personnel found a human urinary bladder with a fetus nested inside, consistent with the one that was previously gestating in the hand. The bladder was planted in the soil like a seed, and 2 days later, it germinated and became an SCP-401 seedling. The organism died of malnutrition 1 week later, despite being fed nutritional supplement 401NS3. Man, am I sure glad my hand couldn't get pregnant. There'd be so many of me. Experiment log 401-3. Subject: female D-class personnel D2081. Procedure: an egg was removed from D2081's ovary, fertilized with genetic material harvested from SCP-401, and frozen until next spring. The fertilized egg was implanted into SCP-401 and allowed to gestate. Details: data expunged. Oh, that's bullshit. I want to see what happened to the homunculus tree, baby. By the way, I'm not an SCP, I have never been an SCP, and I will never be an SCP. I am my own thing from my own universe, which is owned by someone who is very protective of their intellectual property. Not even joking, I kinda need to state this for legal reasons. Original OC, do not steal. Anomalous Foundations have recently seized all evidence relating to a police case believed to be connected to several brutal homicides. The reason behind it remained mysterious, until recently. Leo Vincible released this image depicting an entity, alongside the caption, Ragboy. While these might seem unrelated at first, it's the nature of the murders and the caption of the evidence that prove their connection. The bodies of the deceased were all found displayed in unique, strange, and horrific art house manners. However, there are some consistencies in each case. Sewing needles and thread used to manipulate the poses of the body and mutilate the body parts. The eyes, mouth, nostrils, ears, even both front and back naughty holes were found either sewn open or closed. The body is either suspended in the air or sewn into furniture, onto walls, to the ceiling, everything in the kitchen sink. And I don't just mean the saying, he sewed one guy to a kitchen sink. Wherever they're found, the victim's body and limbs are posed in lifelike stances, all held in place by sewing thread. The police and media alike were stunned at the intricacy of the scenes, and noted that almost superhuman care and skill must have gone into this almost artistic horror show. The media was following the alleged serial killings, and the local presses had given the perpetrator a name, Ragboy. I don't know why they named the serial killer that, but at least they didn't give him a cool serial killer name like the Iceman or the Salami Strangler. I feel like if we want people to stop serial killing, we have to give them embarrassing names in the media. Like Wet the Bed Until He Was 17, the Ripper. Statistically true, by the way, serial killers pee the bed for way too long, look it up. As the cases piled up and got more attention, the Foundation took notice and monitored the town where this was occurring closely. Eventually, they found their man, Boy critter thing. A security camera captured the entity murdering and then carefully setting up his victim in the final frame of a Fortnite dance. With this information, the Foundation moved to observe the entity in its natural habitat before moving to containment. It's totally not that they couldn't get their supernatural DMV asses in gear to put this pointy dish rag in a box. That's for sure. Leo may have gotten this image from the same security leak, and it brings vital information in understanding this creature's physiology. At first glance, he may appear to be a being made entirely out of cloth and thread. Patchwork burlap skin held together by frayed gray threads, two bright orange button eyes stitched in with a crisscross pattern, and fingers webbed together by string, dangling a litany of sharp needles. Upon further examination, it's clear that he has a set of human teeth and gums, meaning that he's at least partially biological in nature. It's possible that the burlap and thread is only skin deep, leaving a possibility that what's under it was human. From the Foundation's observation, it became clear that this entity was violent, but perhaps not inherently malicious. While Ragboy is murdering individuals in horrific manners and using needles and string to pose them like action figures on a chubby kid's desk, evidently, he's only doing it to people who have done some fucked up things. The majority of his victims have abusive tendencies, violent felonies, or at least littered or something. We can only hope that Ragboy's idea of good and bad line up with your own. Everyone thinks they're the good guy, especially the bad guy. I'm fairly sure that Kim Jong-un thinks he's the best guy. So, just saying. Sometimes, the body display is clearly a message specifically for the individual victim. For example, Ragboy once visited a politician who lied to an entire town about the safety of a mining structure, only to have the structure collapse, killing over 100 men, famously and gruesomely decapitating one on camera. This politician was found hanging upside down by the legs from the rubble of the very same structure, his head sloppily sawed off at the neck, but suspended from the stub by several threads, his mouth sewn shut, his eyes sewn open, peering directly down at his crimes. Another of Ragboy's victims was this creep who would grope people on the subway. He was found with his hands sewn around his dick and balls in a masturbatory pose, bringing a whole new meaning to the phrase, "go fuck yourself." This one time, and I have no idea what the guy did, but he sewed a deaf guy's ears shut. And then he got taken off Twitter. Elon put him back on though, and then everyone kind of forgot about it when we all rightfully told Mr. Beast how terrible he was for making that child no longer blind. Oh wait, shit. I think Ragboy also sewed that kid's eyes shut. You know, maybe the Foundation is wrong. I think he might just be doing this at random. By the way, none of this is canon, I made it all up. But, if you do like SCP and other spooky content without a shitty joke every 10 seconds, check out my Spooky Stories channel, where I read creepypastas, SCP, No Sleep, My Text to My Exes, and a lot of other horrifying stories. I just read SCP-401 over there, as a matter of fact. If you like this video and want to see more anomalous content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with all notifications enabled. I'm not throwing anyone to the Onision tree, but I'll give you worms or something, I don't know. I'd like to thank Biodegradable for editing this video. They're a great editor and you should go watch all of their things. Shout out the Inner Circle. Love y'all.